How's everybody doing?
All right.
Good weekend?
It's kind of boring.
Boring weekend?
Yesterday I literally did nothing.
It was windy.
I cleaned my room. That's how bored I was.
Wow. Well, I bet your parents were happy about that.
My mom asked me what I wanted. She said, "Why'd you clean your room? What do you want?" I was like,
Nice.
"Oh, and I made pancakes."
For breakfast?
Oh no, for dinner.
For dinner? Breakfast for dinner is awesome. Love that.
And I have enough for lunch when I get home.
Oh, well, I don't know about leftover pancakes, but
I like
They're
McDonald's
chocolate
last
chip pancakes.
McDonald's?
McDonald's. I got a 20-piece nugget.
I made, I go to Yoder Meats. I'm on that keto diet. So I eat meat, cheese, pickles, olives,
Ew, pickles.
salads.
I hate pickles and olives.
I had a bad weekend. I went off my diet for the weekend, put on 6 pounds in a
I
week.
think everybody was
6 pounds.
That's true. Do you like take the toppings off of the pizza and like put it in a pepper and like pretend that's healthy? Do that?
I don't eat the pizza.
What?
I don't. When I'm on the diet, I don't eat pizza. Because the bread, it's the bread you can't eat. No bread, no pasta, no rice.
Oh,
Is it not rice?
Good.
Now, I lost 25 pounds doing that, so it works. So I went to Yoder
But how
Meats
are you
and I
feeling?
bought, how do I feel?
Yeah.
Great.
Oh.
Amazing.
I mean, you're not missing anything.
I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I'll eat lettuce. I eat salad. Spinach salad usually, but, man, is it warm in here?
Yeah.
It's humid. I'm feeling just fine. Freak you.
Okay.
Okay.
So guys, yeah, Yoder Meats, I bought 5 packages of brats and cooked that. That's my lunch and snack for the week. So I'm all set to drop back down 6 pounds over the next couple of days. So.
You should get that horseradish cheese I got.
Ooh, that horseradish cheese?
Uh-huh.
Ooh, I will look for that next time I'm there. I love horseradish and I love cheese. Okay. But no, they have those jalapeno cheddar brats and the cheddar brats and the pepper jack brats. Man, they're so good. Yeah, that's my diet for days. All right, so guys, you know what federalism is. Oh, Lord, I hope so. Okay, it's that sharing or division of power between national, state, and local governments. I guess I only have 11 slides for this. All right, so this one's going to go fast, like this week. Fast.
Whoa.
Is there a
I did this in one day with my honors classes last week. Well, a day and a half. 2 days. Okay, we'll take 4, maybe 5. Okay. But it's kind of repetitive, but it goes, it's really that relationship between the national government and the states, okay? And it's really important because our country has changed so much in the last 50 years when it comes to this relationship between the national government and states, okay? And so there is a good example of this in the Catholic Church, okay? And I don't know if you guys have heard of this subsidiarity. Brian shaking your head, yeah, maybe a little bit. Okay. Basically, the thought is whoever is closest to the problem takes care of the problem. Okay, so let's say we have a homeless issue in Wichita, Kansas. So who should take care of that problem? Who can help fix that problem? Should it be Washington, D.C., the national government, or could it be the local community? Not just the local government, but how about the government working with the local churches to solve the problem of homelessness in Wichita, Kansas? Does that make sense? So if you allow the local government to do that, along with private citizens, then you have more people involved in solving the problem at the level where it's at. If you do it in Washington, D.C., then you got people, 1,000 miles away, and it's a small group of people that are going to be, trying to fix the problem for everybody. Okay, because there's homeless problems here, there's homeless problems there, there's homeless over there, California, Seattle, Colorado. Okay, so this idea of federalism can be very effective at solving problems if you allow it to happen. Okay, so remember unitary systems, guys? This is what we are turning into. We started, remember, with this. Confederal systems. Oops. Right, we started with a very weak national government, had strong state and local. Right, this is what we're turning into. We need to remember what federalism is, where each level has responsibilities. What we're doing now, guys, is giving more and more responsibilities to the national government. And a lot of that comes because of money. Okay, when the federal government starts giving money to the states, okay, they start getting more control over the states because that money comes with strings attached. Okay, and that's control by the federal government. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about over the next couple of days. Now, to start with, just the 20th century. None of you guys are in history right now, right? Okay, and when you get to Lovelace or Skaggs' class next semester, okay, you're going to start in 1919, right after World War I. Okay, and the Great Depression hits in 1929 with the stock market crash. Okay, the federal government is going to start doing things it's never done before. Okay, and prior to 1919 or the Great Depression, the federal government did very little. Okay, and what we just studied in the Constitution, they could build post offices and postal roads. They have the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, which we didn't have an Air Force back then, but you know what I mean. The national government did very little. Okay, so when we move to the 20th century, the federal government has increased its influence over the states. So jobs once handled really only by the states are now aided by the feds. And some of this is good. Some of this is positive. Some of it is not. Okay. And I did just put these notes up on the module. Okay. So they're there. I know nobody's watching live here, but they're up. Okay. And I'll post the assignment today. Okay, which will be the vocab or the key terms, and I got 2 questions from the chapter I want you to answer as well. Okay, I'll post that. Give you a few extra points there. All right. All right. So good examples. So I'm going to provide some examples here. Okay. And I guess you guys that hadn't been over here, but so the FBI. Federal Bureau of Investigation, okay? You guys have all heard of BTK, right? Certainly, if your parents lived in Wichita while he was committing his crimes, I didn't live here. I think it was when we moved here, they were talking about it. I moved here in '95. And then they caught him, I don't know. What, about 10 years ago? 8 years ago, I think. You guys remember that?
Only 10 years ago?
Is it been longer than that?
It's longer than that.
Yeah.
I didn't
hear about it that much.
My wife remembers hearing about it. I thought it was around 9/11, but I don't know. Serious. When was BTK caught? Stand by, please. Okay. So you can see how, like, the FBI could come in and aid. There's a good show on Netflix. I don't know if any of you guys have seen this, called Mindhunter. Yeah. Okay. So you see the FBI where they start that kind of the profiling, figuring out how to profile criminals, and they help the states with that, with those investigations. That's a good thing, right? And then you could actually see it reverse as well, where the FBI is looking at somebody for a federal crime, where the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, the KBI, could help the FBI out, or local police could help the FBI out. Okay, so that's that sharing of power, that cooperation, or some people refer to it as cooperative federalism. Okay. All right. So now you've all heard of the Kansas National Guard. We have a Kansas Air National Guard as well, correct? The federal government trains those people and pays their salaries. If there's a big hurricane, a big tornado like we had in Greensburg a few years ago, the governor of Kansas can use the National Guard to help with rescue or cleanup or what have you. If there's like an emergency or there's riots in your city, they can call out the National Guard. Okay. But the federal government funds that, trains those folks. Okay. But it helps the states in certain situations. Does that make sense? Okay. If you've noticed, there hadn't been a lot of riots since the election took place. All those cities boarded up their businesses and so forth. That's interesting. Okay. So with that, with the election, guys, be honest, I've tried to like tone out a little bit, but I check in every now. I've got it pulled up on my phone where I can check the vote counts. Actually, Georgia's down to like 1,000 votes right now. Okay, and they called that for Biden. Okay, but Trump is within 1,000 votes, and he's getting closer in Arizona as well. So I don't know. There are some lawsuits. We'll see how that plays out. In 2000, a lot of people have been talking about this. Is for 27 days, Al Gore was asking for recounts, and there were some lawsuits and stuff. So it was 27 days before Al Gore conceded the election to George W. Bush. Okay, so the election, the states have to certify their elections. You know how many have been certified so far? 0. Okay, so it's not over, but it's not looking good for Trump. Okay, but it's not over. We'll see. Okay. All right. All right. So this is where we start to see a change. All right. In the current issues with federalism. Okay. And this is, I talked about money. Okay. In the 1970s and early 80s, the federal government started using revenue sharing. Okay. Where they would send federal tax dollars and share them with local and state governments. Let me help you with this idea of revenue sharing. Some of you may go to work for a big corporation one day. When you get out of school, you go to work for a big company like Boeing. Okay, say you go to work for Boeing or Spirit or something like that. Okay, and they have a great year. Like they make huge profits. Okay, and they want to share some of that revenue with their employees. So one of the things these companies will do is they'll offer you, an employee, stock at a cheaper price than the general public can buy it at. So let's say Boeing shares are selling for $50 a share of stock. They could offer to their employees for $40 a share. So if you buy 100 shares, you just made $1,000 because every share that you bought is worth 50, but you only paid 40 for it. Does that make sense? That's like revenue share. Okay. Now, when the federal government does this, when it sends tax dollars back to the states and local governments, where does that money originate? Those tax dollars. In the states, right? And, it originates with the people. We send it to Washington, D.C., or they take it out of our check and go to Washington, D.C. with it, right? And then they send it back to us. And we're like, oh, thank you, government. Thank you for giving us our money back. Okay, I mean, that's basically what's happening here. Okay, now I'm going to use an analogy here. It's a little bit of a strange analogy, so bear with me. Okay, I want you to think of this revenue sharing as crack. Crack is a drug, right? Crack kills. Don't do crack. Okay, that was a PSA back in the 1980s. Don't do crack. Crack kills. Okay. Now, crack is highly addictive. Okay, so the government's going to give you a little bit of crack. Here, taste this. See if you like it. How's it make you feel? Okay, and you like it. Okay, now what are you going to do with this crack? Well, you're going to take this money, and from the federal government, the states are going to be, thank you for this money. You know what we really need to do is hire some more teachers. So they take this money and they hire some new teachers. Okay, which is great, because now you have smaller class sizes and so forth. It's better for the students. Okay, so now 1 year goes by. What happens next year? Is the federal government going to send you that money again? Because if they don't, how are you going to pay those teachers next year? So now the states are a little bit dependent on the federal government to keep things going the way they have. You follow me on this? Now, states like this money, so they start to become addicted to it. Okay? Now, there was a lot of pressure during this time period to slow down government spending. Okay, that we were starting to run deficits. Okay, so the government was spending, let's say, $3.1 trillion. Okay? But they were only taking in 2.9 trillion. So they were running a deficit, okay, of $200 billion. Spending $200 billion more than they were taking in. They said, hey, we need to balance our budget. You follow me on this? Okay, so there was pressure to cut spending. Guys, anytime the government cuts spending, it hurts somebody. Somebody's going to get hurt. You know what I mean? Now, if we didn't start this business to begin with, then nobody would be getting hurt. But now we create all these programs that people become dependent on, and then when you've got to cut your spending, somebody's going to get hurt. And politicians don't like to hurt anybody, because then they don't get reelected. So guess what? When they create a new program for the federal government, it generally never goes away. Even if it is ineffective and inefficient, it rarely goes away. So government just continues to grow and grow and grow. Okay, or as Hobbes called it, it becomes a leviathan, a wicked sea monster from the Bible. Okay. All right. So under revenue sharing, states really like this because they had a great deal of freedom. They could spend that money on whatever they wanted. New teachers, more cops, fixing bridges, roads, whatever they wanted to spend the money on, they could. But in the 80s, in the mid-80s, there came a lot of pressure to cut that spending. So this is what the government does. Instead of cutting spending, they just change the name of the program. Because they're not going to cut spending. Well, they will a little bit, because this is Ronald Reagan. And Reagan is about government is too big. It does too much. Okay? And so they're going to try and cut some federal spending. And they will rename the programs. Okay? So as I said, in spite of pressure to decrease spending, federal aid has continued and even grown. Okay. Now that instead of calling it revenue sharing, guys, they're going to start calling it federal grants. Federal grants. Okay. Now, if you want this money, states, local communities, now that I've got you addicted to it, if you want more crack, you're going to have to follow my rules. I got you. I got you. I got you addicted. Now, in order to get that money, get that crack, you're going to have to follow my rules. Is the thing in the way? Sorry. What if I put it here? Nobody can read it anyways. So I know crack is a strange analogy, but it does work here. Okay. So we're going to learn about these different types of grants that they're putting out there. Okay. By the way, the Senate is up in the air. We don't know. Georgia runs its elections differently, and with their Senate candidates, they had two running, two Senate races. Neither one of the candidates got 51%. You have to get a majority, or 50.01 would be a majority. And one of them, the Republican Purdue, is at 49.8% of the vote. So they're going to have to do a runoff, okay, in December for both of those Georgia Senate seats. Okay, if the Democrats win both of those, it'll be a 50-50 tie in the Senate. And if Biden is president, that means Kamala Harris will be the tie-breaking vote in the Senate, vice president. So the Democrats will control the Senate. Okay. If the Republicans win one of those seats, Republicans maintain control of the Senate. Okay. And I think they will, but we'll see. That'll be interesting. Now, the stock market has reacted to this election. And the thing that the stock market liked was divided government, so that the House of Representatives couldn't ram through something like Medicare for all. The Senate could stop it. Okay. Remember, when you pass a bill, it's got to pass both houses. Okay. And if the Senate, the Republicans control it, they can stop anything crazy from happening. Okay. All right. So back to these grants. Okay. Grant and aid is money and other resources the federal government provides state and local governments. Just like revenue sharing, they just changed the name. Okay. Now I want you to look at this graph. This starts in 1960. Okay. Very little federal government funding to the states. In fact, $45.3 billion in 1960. Now, if you go back to 1940, it's like $8 billion. Okay. Today, that number is 500. That's 2004. It's over $215 billion. Did I say 200? 515 billion. Okay. And guys, if you threw the pandemic stuff in there, I mean, you're pushing $1 trillion. I mean, they did $3.3 trillion for the first one. Okay, so, and I mean, almost all that money went to the states and local governments. Okay, I mean, we're getting it here, right? That CARES Act, right? So that breakfast you just ate, who paid for that? Brian, who paid for that? Did you pay for that?
Did you steal that, Brian?
I'm asking the question, who paid for that, Brian? The federal government paid for that. Not Bishop Carroll, not the diocese, not Wichita, not the state of Kansas, the national government. But you know who really is paying for that? Your grandkids. That's who's paying for that. I'm not kidding, guys. Our national debt is out of freaking control. Let's look at the debt plot. Oh my gosh. I haven't looked at this in a while. It was 23 trillion last year.
It's a lot of numbers.
Okay, this is what you owe on that national debt, 82,000. Okay. Now, if you're a taxpayer, it's 218,000. So this would be like your brothers and sisters that are younger than you. They owe 82,000. You guys are, those of you that have jobs, this is you and me. Okay. So this is how much it's going to spend this year. 6 trillion, 6.6 trillion. Normally that's about 4. Okay, so we're up. Oh, actually, actual 7.7. Oh my gosh. So the budget deficit this year is going to be 4 trillion. And Nancy Pelosi in the House wants to do another 2.8 trillion. They want to bail out the states, especially California and New York. Kansas opened back up, right? We open back up. You go to restaurants. I go to restaurants all the time. We eat out way too much. Okay. In New York, in California, they're still locked down. I mean, like the restaurants, you can do outdoor eating, but that's it. Okay. The nail salons, the hairdressers, you know, all these places that got shut down, and businesses that are being affected. Obviously, the airlines is a big one. The cruise ships, but most of the cruise ship companies, guys, are foreign owned. They're not American owned. Okay. But the airlines are in big trouble. Okay. It's really, and that's why it hasn't passed, because the Senate, controlled by Republicans, said, no, we're not bailing out New York and California. They need to frickin' open up their states. Let people go back to work. Now, we hit 5.2 million people worldwide that have tested positive for COVID now. Okay. About 1/5 of those cases are in the United States. Okay. Now, what are we doing that other places aren't? We're testing more than any other country, which means we're going to have more positives. Yes? Okay. And we don't like to be locked down. You know what I mean? Now, I don't know what's going to happen, guys, but we got a bunch of teachers on quarantine right now. Yeah, today. There's subs all over the building. Okay, I'm subbing again, 3rd hour. Okay, so, I don't know. We could be going, I say if we get, you know, another 5 or 6 teachers have quarantine, you don't have enough subs. I mean, they got some strangers in the day. You won't recognize them. You've never seen that sub before. Okay. So I don't know what's going to happen there. This is bad. Okay. Now, this is your grandkids. This is your kids. I mean, they're going to be saddled with this. Politicians have short-term views. They want to get reelected. They don't want to cause pain. Where are you going to cut spending here? I mean, we're running $4 trillion budget deficit this year. Where are you going to cut $4 trillion? You can't. Because that's our whole budget is for. We're like doubling our budget. Our budget's usually around a little over 4 trillion, normal. Okay, like last year it was 4 trillion. Okay, and we're spending 7.7. It's freaking crazy, man. You guys need to pay attention here, okay? And we just elected Joe Biden, okay? Which party tends to spend more money, Republicans or Democrats? Democrats, okay? Now, I'm not saying Republicans don't bear a lot of the blame here, because they do. Both parties do. There's no question. I'm not just throwing accusations at the Democrats. I'm just warning you that the Democrats are now in control. Okay? Medicare for all, which Joe Biden said he doesn't want to do. Okay? But Kamala does, and a lot of people in the Democratic Party. They scored that, guys, at between $39 and $46 trillion to do that over 10 years. Think we got the money to do that kind of stuff?
Who's doing the finances? Not doing the
No, they're not. Our Congress is not. That's why we need term limits. Okay, we really need term limits. I think so. We need to throw them out. Get them out of there. Get new people in there that are watching this and going, "This is insane." Okay, because it is. Now, we had a freaking crisis. We got this huge pandemic. Nobody knew how bad it was going to be. We locked it down. We shut everybody down through no fault of their own. So all these businesses, guys, it's not their fault they had to shut down. And all the people that work for these businesses. So the government has to bail them out. It's wrong not to. Okay? But we're not doing that. Down. I don't know. Biden said he wants to do a national mask mandate. I think he could do a national mask mandate, and it wouldn't work. I'll wear it, okay? Okay. But dude, it's not stopping the virus from coming out of my mouth or your mouth.
I agree.
It's not even close. How small the particles are, right? Have you heard about this? Do you know? In the very beginning, they were saying masks don't work.
Just shut the door if you're gonna whisper. That's okay, we can talk about that.
Okay. So guys, this is changing. Okay, this is the 80s. This is Reagan. Okay, Reagan's like, government's too big. Okay, he was the only one. All right. We'll get Ronnie back. All right. Where's my mouse? All right. Now, guys, this is just kind of historic, looking at how the federal government has aided the states or done some of this stuff in the past, okay? And you might remember this from history last year a little bit, okay? Used for specific projects authorized by the federal government, okay? Now, you know what could happen? What would be interesting? And this is stuff I worry about. So I just said some stuff on camera. This is going on YouTube, right? So if the YouTube censors got in there and watched my video, right? Which they do, because if I show like a video in my video, they'll check it for copyright. You know what I mean? Like sometimes we'll watch like a YouTube video inside, live in here, and it'll show up when I upload it, copyright issue. They check it and they're like, oh, that's fine, and then go. Okay. So they could look at what I said there, like masks don't work, right? And then they could censor me. You know what I mean? Or they could call the state of Kansas and tell the governor that this teacher at Bishop Carroll High School said masks don't work. That's what I fear. Big government like that. You know what I mean? But you know what? I don't care. We still live in a free country, and it's the truth. But, anytime I go to a restaurant, I'll wear it going in, I'll wear it to Dylan's, I'll wear it wherever you want me to wear it, I'll wear it. Okay? I'll go along. One thing that's great, guys, and I was thinking about this morning, is I got to know you. You know what I mean? I've had this opportunity to get to know you face to face these first couple of months, and if we go online, I know you. But I cannot imagine doing this with having never met you. It would be horrible. It would be cold. Okay. All right, so this is kind of interesting. The Land Ordinance Act set aside land for public schools. So Northwest High School, right? That big piece of land. They did this all over the country. Whenever a state became a state, a territory became a state, they set aside land for schools. Okay. And then in 1862, the Morrill Act set aside money and land for state universities. Now, these are A&M universities. Now, we don't call K-State A&M, but it is an A&M. You guys know what A&M stands for? Okay, you're close. Definitely agriculture, yes, okay? The M stands for actually for mechanics, okay? Which means, so if you're going to K-State, you're going there for agriculture or what? Engineering. So mechanics is engineering. So a lot of these A&M schools have good engineering programs. It's a focus of the school, okay? And K-State was actually the first one created under this Morrill Act, okay, in 1862, which is pretty cool. Now, I know they have a good vet school as well, but like they have engineering at KU, but your degree is probably going to be better engineering degree from K-State than KU, if that makes sense, okay? Transportation systems, housing for the needy, these are things that grants can help with, okay? Historically, that's what they've done, okay? So, but transportation system, we're talking about roads. Under the Constitution, guys, when they said postal roads, they can build these, okay? This stuff starts in the 1930s. So we went, the federal government didn't do hardly anything for the states prior to the 1930s. The federal government was tiny. Now it's a behemoth, okay? And some people think it needs to be bigger. Some people think it needs to be smaller. All right, categorical grants. Okay, this is something you definitely want to know for the test. Okay, payments to carry out very specific activities. Okay, and we see this right now. We've had a lot of forest fires in California, right? So, and a lot of hurricanes this year. Okay, Louisiana's been hit, Florida's been hit. There's one about to hit Florida right now, or is hitting Florida right now. Edna, or Etta. One of those, that's right. Okay, it's ETA, I think. And it's like hitting Miami area at the tip of Florida, and then I think it's going to come back into the Gulf, and then come back and hit Florida again. So in California, you can get what's called a natural disaster declaration, okay, if there's a natural disaster. And that kicks in categorical grants, okay, for very specific activities, like a natural disaster, okay, or airports, or unemployment compensation, fighting crime, okay, specific areas. Okay, again, this is federal money coming to the states and local communities. Now, this is very specific, okay? Now, the amount of money you get for these things is based on your population. So let's see airports, okay? How many airports we got in Kansas? They're just airports. We got a bunch, don't we? Little airports, big airports. And there's one in Benton. You guys ever been to that one in Benton? I guess there's a restaurant there.
Oh, yeah.
Have you been there?
Yeah.
I really want to do that. I heard it's really nice.
It's actually, it's like kind of small, but they have really good food.
Good food, and then you get to see planes come and go some?
Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes.
Really right now.
Right. Yeah, I heard that's a pretty neat place to go. I mean, there's one in Augusta, right? There's a little airstrip out there. They have flight training. So let's say the federal government's going to send a categorical grant to Kansas, okay? And they're going to send us $3 million, okay? that go specifically to airports. Okay, but let's say our airports are in pretty good shape. Okay, do we have to take this money? No, we don't have to take the money, but it's our money. It started with us, right? Here's the thing. Look at this bottom line. Typically require states to contribute their own funds as well. So the categorical grants is we're going to give you $3 million for airports, but you need to put in $500,000 of your own money to contribute to this. So now we'll have $3.5 million to fund airports. Okay, now wait a second. Guys, we have this place called Topeka, where the state capital is, right? And we have a government in Topeka. What's that government called? State government, and then the legislative branch there is the state legislature. We have a governor who's the chief executive, right? It's a microcosm of the federal government. Okay, so you got the governor and the state legislature. Now, the state of Kansas taxes you and I. Those tax dollars go to fund education and roads, mostly. Okay, I'd say 85% of all the money, I don't know if it's that high, but 80% of all the money that the state collects, they spend it on education and roads, transportation. You with me? Now, because the federal government is saying we have to put up our own money for these airports, who is deciding how the state legislature is spending our money? Okay, I'm going to rephrase this question. Stay with me. This is an important point. The state legislature, we elect, they tax us, they decide how to spend our money. Now the federal government's saying, if you want this categorical grant, you need to take $500,000 of Kansas's money and spend it on airports. Who is deciding how the state of Kansas is spending our own money? The national government is. So when I talk about unitary system, guys, where the national government has more decision, that's what I'm talking about. They're directing our own money now. Does that make sense? Okay, I will continue with that point tomorrow, so tune in. Okay?
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
Yep.